Good afternoon.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please, for the Horry County Solid Waste Authority regular meeting Tuesday, July 24th, 2018 at 5:30. Thank all of y'all for being here and welcome. Invocation will be by Bo Eyes, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be by Michael Campbell.
Everyone, please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your gifts. Thank you for the resources you provided. Please grant us the wisdom, the tools, and the expertise to take the things that we collect and make those resources last as well. We like to think of how you've provided for this planet and that we need to think about the future and in all the endeavors that we do. And these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Let's face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need to get an approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion, please.
I make a motion.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Are there any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. We need to approve the minutes for June 26, 2018 regular meeting. If I could get a motion,
So
please.
moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Is there any questions? No questions. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay, and the motion is carried. We also need to approve the annual meetings on June 26, 2018. I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Ayes. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. We will have a special presentation this afternoon from Ms. Brianna. Is she here? Okay. Good to see you.
Let me start out. Brianna's been with us this summer. She's a coastal student, and she's been working with us. And when she started, I told her I would love for her to do a presentation when she finished up that we could maybe use later on. So I think she's graduating the next day or two,
Next day or two?
I believe.
Well,
Your summer graduation?
Oh, I think that's terrific.
Congratulations.
Okay, so hi, my name is Brianna Polici. I'm a graduating student from Coastal Carolina. I'm graduating with a public health degree. So within my course, we had to participate in an internship, but we were allowed to pick where we wanted our internship to be. I decided to go with the Solid Waste Authority because in my sophomore year, I watched a video in my environmental health class about, it's called Plastic Paradise, and it's about this plastic island that's floating in the Pacific Ocean, and just watching that video just completely opened my eyes, and I thought it was awful about what that looked like, so I wanted to try and make a difference, so I thought this would be the perfect place. Another reason why I picked this was because I've never been to a landfill before. I've heard of it, but I've never really knew what it was about, what it looked like, all the above. So I'm graduating August 3rd, so next week, and after that, I'm moving back to Connecticut. It's hard to say what I'm gonna do after that because I'm so passionate about a lot of things in life that I don't know exactly where I wanna go in life yet. But in the next 2 years, I plan on moving to California and hopefully maybe working with a company that will help with plastic. So one of the most amazing things that I got to learn during my 10 weeks at the Solid Waste Authority was about green power. I got to actually check out the area where the green power was, and I actually got to start 2 of them one day, so I thought it was really cool. Okay, so my main project while I was at the Solid Waste Authority was to create a PowerPoint about what a landfill is and what goes on at one. And hopefully this PowerPoint can be used in the future at other meetings and community presentations. So the Solid Waste Authority is a nonprofit organization that was established in the 1990s. It is governed by 7 board members. So basically, a landfill is an area where it's designated to hold and isolate waste from the environment, and it is the federal and state regulations are governed that location and make sure that it's healthy for the human and environment. So basically, the waste gets dumped into a specific area at the landfill, and it's called a working face. And then by then, there's big tractors with spiky wheels, and they go back and forth over the garbage and crush and compact as much garbage into a space as possible. And that's very important because space is money. Oh, there we go, sorry. Okay, so this is one picture. It's another picture. And I decided to include the basic parts of a landfill. So we have the bottom liner system, the cells, which is where the waste is dumped, the stormwater drainage system, the leachate collection system, the methane collection systems, and then the final cover system for when the landfill is closed. Here's some facts and figures about the tonnage from the 2018 year. So Recycling and Corporation Affairs. So unfortunately, the state of South Carolina does not make it mandatory to recycle. But however, there are 24 different recycling centers that are located all around Horry County. Some pictures of the one that's right here. So the MRF is a materials recycling facility, which is capable of processing 30,000 tons of recyclables annually. And this is basically where all of the recycling from all the recycling centers go to. So this is a picture of it. And then on the inside, so all the recyclable materials are hand sorted and then are packaged to be shipped to factories that can turn them into other recycled products. So this is the inside. You can see some of the workers on the line. And then this is the finished product before it gets shipped off. And they also have e-waste recycling, so any electronics. Some more pictures of cardboard, wood, metal, plastic, aluminum, concrete, dirt. So I thought this was really cool that we can turn things into other things. So yard waste can be turned into compost, clean wood can be turned into boiler fluid, and land clearings can be turned into mulch. So this is some recycling facts and figures about the tonnage in the 2018 year. And then this is the food scrap composting. This is basically what can and cannot be compostable, like for food materials. And then this is what it looks like at the landfill. So they line it up in rows, and then people can come in and purchase. We also have a household hazardous waste area where citizens are able to properly dispose of no longer needed batteries, chemicals, paints, anything that they don't want lying around the house that we don't want in the landfill, they can bring here. So the groundwater monitoring system is really cool. I got to personally be able to do some leachate samples, stormwater samples, and swamp water samples. Funny story, I saw a snake doing the swamp water samples, and I was not a happy girl. Don't like snakes. So the landfill has 73 methane gas wells, which creates green power, and Santee Cooper gas skid powers about 2,000 homes, which I think is really cool. And once again, like I said before, I was actually able to start up 2 of those, so that was really cool. So the Finance and Administration Department, So the Solid Waste Authority receives all their funding from tipping fees rather than from tax money. They take all the tickets from the scale house and corrects any mistakes before sending them to the billing places, and deals with any mistakes on tickets or wrong billing amounts, et cetera, et cetera. So the scale house is basically our money house. It's where we get our money from. The trucks will come in and will record the weight of the trucks entering and exiting the landfill. And it'll also record the company of the trucks and who the driver is and what location it had come from. So the store is actually really cool. The store consists of items people no longer want, but instead of throwing them out, they donate them to be resold, aka recycled. All the money collected from the purchasing items at the store goes to the Council on Aging, who uses it towards their Meals on Wheels program for the citizens of Horry County. Some more pictures of the inside. There's a Christmas room, which was really cool. So we also have a public education. It includes free school and community presentations, free tours and field trips, quarterly open houses, and attending community festivals and events. Some school recycling programs include Talking Trash, which is where elementary schools can compete against each other who can recycle the most. Pop Art, where students can create artwork and have art contests using plastic bags, bottle caps, crayons, anything else that can't really be disposed of. The classroom paper, they're given those blue plastic bins so that they can recycle office paper. And then Cafeterias Against Trash, they have a program where it's no cost offered to all schools where they just have one of these Solid Waste Authorities bins. So in conclusion, I would love to thank the Solid Waste Authority board and staff for allowing me to complete my internship here. And I definitely have learned a lot more than I was expecting coming in here. And I plan on using all this information and taking it with me and hopefully bringing it to California with me and doing something about the nasty plastic islands that we have floating around in the ocean. Thanks.
I would just like to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You did a great job. Pam and I are one for pictures, and now I can see all of this stuff very clearly. So it looked, you did real good.
There was a lot of awesome.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
took some of them, and then Kendra helped me with some of
Yeah,
them, too.
but it looks really good. You did a real comprehensive overlook of the landfill. I thank you. Mhm. Okay. We do have a request for public input this afternoon. Miss Amelia Woods, so I'd like to invite you to the podium, and I would like to ask, if possible, to try to stay within 5-6 minutes for us.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
I was one of the ones who was at the meeting that Danny had, and I understand that Pam was one of the planners of that meeting for people who were interested in environmental issues. And I want you all to know, some of you probably already know, I'm a member of all those organizations, a supporting member. And over the years, I've been involved in their causes, each of their causes to varying degrees. But tonight, I'm not representing any one specific organization. I'm not representing all the organizations. I'm just speaking as a Horry County citizen. And when we came to the meeting, we were informed of the expansion plans for the landfill. We asked a few questions while we were there. Quite frankly, we weren't really prepared to ask questions, and probably because of the magnitude of what you're proposing, that just was mind-boggling. Since then, I've spent a lot of time reviewing board minutes and budgets, and I've got a few more questions now. And Michael asked me if I'd put some questions together, and I've got some of those put together for you. One thing that I'd like to address first is the 2018 plan, the one that is being prepared at this time. I did read over that plan, and in the draft of that plan, you point to several pages of budget information as the answer to requirements that I'm going to read right here. And in my opinion, that budget information didn't actually address these requirements, and I'm hoping you'll add some more to that. But these are the requirements, and I'm going to quote from the requirements. You're required to put the estimate of the cost of implementing the entire solid waste management plan in the county or region. Also, an estimate of the revenue that each county or local government needs to provide and intends to make available to fund the implementation of the plan. And you also have to have an estimate of the cost of siting, constructing, and bringing into operation any new facilities that will be needed to manage solid waste within the 20-year planning period. That's supposed to be included. So far, it's not included in the draft plan. There were some pages of budget information, but it didn't actually meet those requirements. And my question is, are you going to provide that information? The next question is, after reading over some of your budget information, I'm wondering, will the current budget difficulties that the Solid Waste Authority has had causing you to once again do something that you have done throughout the years, which is to shuffle funds between designated closure and post-closure accounts into other accounts in order to meet pressing needs? Is that going to be a barrier to funding the construction of the planned expansion, which I've been told was around $53 million? Next question, how can you justify an expansion of the landfill when you've had to delay some needed maintenance of the MRF and road improvements because of past budgetary constraints? Have you considered all the what-ifs that could occur as a result of the dramatic recent increases in tipping fees that might have to be increased even more to pay for the expansion? What if somebody asked why Richland County pays only $26.41 per ton to dispose of MSW and $7.95 a ton to dispose of C&D at private landfills, and the Horry County tipping fees are so much higher? What if somebody asked that? Also, have you considered that what you voted to do at your last meeting is not consistent with what's in this plan? And this is the plan that's in the hands of DHEC. And this is your guidance document and your document that has all the thou shalts and the thou shalt nots that this board is supposed to be attending to. But what you voted to do at the last meeting is not consistent with that document, and you voted to move ahead with expansion plans. I strongly suggest that you rescind that vote, and until you have a legitimately prepared county solid waste management plan that's in the hands of South Carolina DHEC and is consistent with what you told the environmental groups you're going to do. The exact cost of the expansion plans also need to be prominent in that plan. South Carolina DHEC cannot legally give you a letter of consistency and a demonstration of need that Vance Moore told you that you would get in August of this year. They can't legally do that until the new plan is in their hands. So another question I have is, do all of the local and county government officials know what you want to do, and have they approved of it? The only way for that question to be answered officially is for the 2018 plan to be legitimately approved through the proper channels, and that has not been accomplished yet. Therefore, any board action to approve moving ahead with the permit application is premature. I feel confident that when or if, and that's a really big if right now, permit applications are submitted, that there will also be comments on the environmental impacts of the project, which would definitely be long-term. But in the short term, Horry County is going to be faced with dealing with the economic impacts of your decisions. And I would encourage you to follow the proper procedures, wait until you have a legitimately prepared plan in the hands of DHEC before you vote to move forward with any expansion plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We'll appreciate your concerns, and we will take those into, the staff will look at the questions, and we will have a formal response for that. Thank you. Okay, department reports, recycling and corporate affairs. Ms. Murphy?
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
My report begins on page 16. I'm going to do an overview of just a few items, beginning with the fiscal year 2019 South Carolina DHEC grants. We applied for 4 grants back in April. We did get notification of the receipt of funding for all 4 grants. There was, if you saw in your packet, there was a couple of items that had been reduced from what we had originally asked for in the waste tire category. We did ask for funding again this year to do a tire buyback day for our residents, as well as funding for 4 waste tire containers for recycling centers. Those items were denied due to decreased funding this year at DHEC, but all other items that we asked for in that grant were approved. In the waste oil category, DHEC did across-the-board reductions for daily equipment items that are used for used oil, such as spill socks or oil dry, and that was across the state, so there was a reduction there. In the solid waste grants, we did apply for a public education outreach grant, and there were 2 categories that this had to touch one or the other. One was dealing with food waste, the other was dealing with the state's campaign to reach a 40% recycling goal by the year 2040. We applied for funding under that last one and did receive $25,000 to promote and encourage people to help us all reach that 40% goal. The other general recycling solid waste grant, the $21,000 on equipment is for used auto battery containers for 4 recycling centers, as well as some public education. So overall, for fiscal year 19, we received $186,420 in DHEC grants. Next, I just want to say thank you once again for everyone who was able to attend our 25th environmental banquet. We do this banquet annually for teachers, Horry County School staff members, support staff, just as a way to say thank you for all their assistance that they give us during the year with regard to recycling programs within the school. Special thanks to Victoria Johnson and Kendra Hooks and Cecil Terry for everything that they do to prepare for that particular event. It does take some work to get done.
The event was outstanding. Everyone really does need applause from us. Children are our future, and the focus of this on our educators is extremely important. Our program's outstanding, but the recognition is well-deserved, and you all did a great job.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to everyone. Lastly, oh, there's some pictures. Oh, there's some more pictures. Oh, okay. Thanks, Cecil. Didn't know. Lastly, our Clark Green Handed recipient for the month of June was Mr. Ronald Vishinsky. He's a regular recycler down at the Scipio Lane Recycling Center, and he was given a prize pack and was very thankful and excited to receive one. And that would be all I have, unless you have some questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Finance and Administrator, Ms. Bennett.
Good evening.
Good
The
afternoon.
financial reports begin on page 23. As you know, as you're used to, of course, these reports are not going to be, of course, the most accurate and up-to-date because, of course, we have not officially closed out our year-end. You'll get a final year-end report, of course, when we complete our audit. Our auditor is planning on being here September 10th to begin our audit. We've already started some of the preparation with confirmations. So we are excited. Like I said, we are getting that ball rolling. But so I'm just going to briefly go over some of these figures, just like I said, remind you they will be changing again. But as you can see, looking in the middle of the page, you can see that our tipping fees for solid waste and mixed construction exceeded budget, and yard waste was just slightly below budget. So we're very pleased to see that we did stay on track with where we anticipated for our tipping fees.
You're projected pretty well.
Yes, sir. And the recyclable sales, as you can see, also exceeded budget at 104.07% of budget.
Thank you.
Our C&D processing facility, as you can see, had for year-to-date revenue, $425,043.73. And as of these reports, the expenses were $623,585.89. And as you can see, it saved 73.86 days of landfill airspace just this year. The materials recycling facility with the collection and hauling program, year-to-date, their revenue is $5,463,060.07. And as of these reports, the revenue or the expenses are $5,852,700.87. As you can see, they saved 61.99 days of landfill airspace. So both of these programs, as you can see, have saved a great deal of landfill airspace this year, which is what our goal is with these programs. Over on page 25, like I said, as of the time that we actually ran these reports, as you can see, month to date, we had revenue over expenses, $516,112.02, and year-to-date, revenue over expenses of $3,116,664.60. Of course, at the end of the year, when we take a look at where we finally end up after the audit, we will be able to transfer some of those funds to future landfill construction or closure and post-closure as needed. As you can see on that page as well, our revenue exceeded budget currently at 112.47%, and our expenses right now are at 99.75% of budget. So again, staff has done a very good job of keeping the expenses below, and our revenue's been well above. Just wanted to take a look over on page 29. Our tonnages are, of course, complete, and so I just wanted to kind of take a look. As you can see, we did end up below in solid waste as compared to last year, 1.94% below in our tonnage. Same thing with our yard waste. It was well below, but we also, again, last year, remember, we did have that storm. And that's the same thing also with the mixed construction, which is why I think our tonnages are well below. I think this will be a better true test this year, hopefully no storms, and then we'll be able to see kind of where we fall. But overall, like I said, that's where our biggest differences are in the tonnages. I'm going to jump over to the MRF reports on page 37. And again, without having all the complete expenses in, these figures are not also our final figures. But as you can see, we did see an average price actually increase this month. Last month, it was $123.12, and you can see this month it actually went up to $143.61. So we're glad to see a little bit of an increase in the average price. Like I said, we were down in what we sold in tonnage by about 100 tons. I think we sold 100 tons more last month. But we were also down about 400 tons in what we processed this month. So that does have an impact as well. As you can see, we did have a cost share. Charleston was due to us of $12,000. $26.06. So our total MRF revenue is $313,761.86 for the month. And as of these reports, the expenses were $423,523.89. And remember, like I said, June's expenses are always a little bit more because like I said, we're closing out the year. We're getting all those last-minute bills in, so you'll see that. Like I said, that will change slightly, but we've got the majority of them in as well. But year-to-date, you can see that the MRF revenue year-to-date is $4,641,909.81. Expenses being $4,299,169.62. So we have seen revenue over expenses year-to-date of $342,740.19, which I think is quite well since the prices did take such a drastic drop. And last year when they fell, they came up a lot quicker, and we haven't seen that as much this year. So Mike and them have done a really good job trying to hold the expenses and watch everything. So like I said, we are going to finish in the black for the MRF. And then the last thing I have for you, of course, is an update on the capital items. And there will still be a couple of things because we haven't finished the landfill gas expansion. I don't have that on here. But just a few new items to add on there. We did purchase a water truck. It was over budget. If you remember, they did come and ask for approval to use some funds that they saved on another piece of equipment to purchase the water truck. We received a cutter head, which was well below budget. They did the event recycling trailer wrap, and as you can see, that was way below budget. They did a really good job with that. And then we received our front-load garbage truck. That is one that we've been waiting on for quite some time. So as you can see, all the items, except there are a couple items that you can see that fall under our equipment replacement in the collection and hauling program. They actually had another front-load truck and a rear loader, and Mr. Cannon pushed those out. Didn't necessarily need to have those purchased this year. He's got them in the FY19 budget. He's already in the process of taking bids for those to get those ordered, so those will be purchased in this year. But that's just showing you some of the items that if it's not necessary, they don't buy it just because it's in the budget, only if they feel that it's necessary. Otherwise, they'll try to push it out a year or two. We were actually able to also purchase a lot of our items, which are kind of our want, kind of need items, and so we're actually able to purchase a lot of those this year. So definitely a good budget year for us as well. Any questions?
Before you bring back the transfers that we look at, are we up to date on the monies we need in the closure and post-closure accounts?
Yes, ma'am, we are. We've been putting aside $6.25 a ton that Mr. Moore has said that we needed to put aside. So we are up to date on what we're putting aside for those funds. Yes, ma'am.
For these years?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for including the summary of capital improvement
You're
expenditures
welcome.
for the quarter. I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Operations, Mr. Bezit.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I want to talk a little bit about unincorporated collection and hauling. As y'all well know, I want to give you an example of how much more we're doing currently with collection and hauling. Since we increased the routes in May, last June we did about 11,000 and some odd services. And this year, we've done over 19,000 services in the month of June alone. So we had a 38% increase in the number of containers that we picked up in June of this year compared to last year. So we definitely increased the amount of containers that we're picking up. And a lot of that had to do with two things, the ones that we took over the routes where the MRF shut down at the beach, as well as some new containers that's being put out by Victoria and Kendra on the street. There's been a big push for new containers out there. So our inventory out here is getting low of empty containers. And we've had those on the yards for a while. But a 38% increase from last year in June to this year is a big increase. Let me get to page 51. I want to talk about MRF tonnage from in 2017 versus 2018. For those months, is about a 14.83% increase. What we have seen is the price somewhat stabilize and increase a little bit. We had about a $15 increase on OCC from from June to July. We also had, at the start of July, we had 1,500 bales of cardboard that we held on to, and we selling them at a higher price than we did at the lower price in June. So we'll get about $15 more ton for that material. It's about 1,200 tons.
Where did you store that?
We had it stored everywhere. Everywhere you could stack it, we had it stacked. We're going to be going to the, as we've talked about a bunch of times, about a building of some kind. What we found out is steel prices have increased. We got a preliminary number prior to budget of about $89,000. When we got our budget and ready to issue the PO, the price jumped to $100,000. We'll be going to the committee sometime to discuss it in the month of August. We'll need to set up a committee meeting and discuss that issue and how we're going to attack it. And staff will come to you with a plan, try to get you to approve so we can go ahead and get that building completed. Because we definitely need it. Driver of the month, Mr. Everett Lumsden. He's our driver of the month. It was picked for by the landfill employees, good employees. He's a single guy. He's been in business of his own for about 7 years. Does good job out on the landfill by telling us, you know, we need this or we need that. And so we appreciate it when they tell us to help us give service better to the people, our customers. Also, one thing I did find out this past month, I was a little late putting his picture up at the scale house. And it wasn't long I was getting calls from the drivers wanting to know when the picture was going up. They wanted to know who was driver of the month. So it's working. So people's looking at it. I had my doubts of whether or not they were paying it attention. And I was about a week later putting it up at the scale house, and we started getting calls wanting to know where that picture was at and who got driver of the month. So it does work. It does work. Any questions from the board? Mine was short and sweet. They always tell me I'm long-winded, but this month is kind of short and sweet.
How much are we getting every month from Charleston now?
We're running around 2,500 to 2,600 tons a month. When we took on the material out of the from the MRFs, all the MRFs that shut down in Horry County, all that material started coming to us. And when it started coming to us, we had to back off because we can't do it so much, and we had to back off on Charleston. Our contract with them is a minimum of 2,500 tons a month, and we make sure we take that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Executive Director?
Thanks, sir. My report's on page 55, and it's mainly about the conservation meeting we had on July the 12th, and we've listed the organizations that came, and maybe you board members that were there would like to say something about it.
Well, I was there, and
It rained.
And it rained, and I had to leave a little earlier, but I think it was a good meeting. Pam came up with the ideal of inviting folk, and what we're trying to do is be transparency here. We want everybody to understand what's going on and what we need to do. There were a lot of good questions. I think it was a good ideal. We captured those questions and who had those questions, and we have prepared answers for those questions. The reason I asked for people to submit their ideas and questions in is so that we can keep a record of all of those, and we can compile those and compare those questions from each group so that we'll understand what it is that your concerns are. We also asked that if you have alternative ideals that you think that may be appropriate for what we're trying to do, then you would submit those ideals as well so that we could review those ideals and compare them with what we're trying to do here. You know, Horry County is a fast-growing county. I saw on the news last night that in Myrtle Beach there was 228 more building permits issued over last year this time. A lot of construction going on, a lot of people moving in, which equals a lot more waste being made. And so we have to act in prudence to be able to be in response to the amount of trash and things that we're going to see. And so it does take some time. But I thought the meeting was well. I think people asked the questions, and like Amelia said, there probably was a lot thrown at you at one time. And so that's why we gave people the opportunity to go back, think of questions, think of resolutions that they may have. And I still ask the public to submit those so that we can look at them and let the staff prepare answers so that you'll understand what's going on. But I thought it was a great meeting. I thought it was a good idea for Pam to suggest that we get people involved early on.
I think it was a great meeting. I saw a lot of people that I have worked with in the past. I'm an environmentalist, and all of those groups I've worked with in one way or another. And some things that have been here have been things I've had a problem with in the past. Unfortunately, until we have mandatory recycling and we have, from a state level, some kind of mandatory law for people who make packaging to downsize that. And some of that's been started by Walmart and the big box areas that have to pay for their trash to be brought to a landfill. They have told a lot of the people they buy from that the packaging, there's too much packaging, it's too large for the items it is with. But we've worked at the State House some with some of the packaging people, and two of the most important things to me in the future are going to be some mandatory recycling. If not, we're going to look like some of the countries where plastics and all of this has been washing up on their shores, and they don't have anything and don't know how to deal with it. So, in my opinion, if we had mandatory recycling and we had the packaging industry that would work with us doing packaging that we can actually recycle today, we wouldn't need as much landfill space. We're doing everything we can to, as you've seen, see the number of days of space that we've saved in a year. And I think we've gotten pretty good at that, and I'd like to see that continue. But those two things I just mentioned are something I think we're all going to have to work with. I think they're very important, and if that happens, hopefully we will not need $53 million projects in the future, that we can use what we have and we'll be able to use it a lot longer. But until that happens, we've got to have a place to put what was brought to us by the cities, by the county, and by private individuals. So to me, a good day is when you can work that out the best way environmentally and financially to work that out for all of the citizens. And hopefully that's what we're going to be looking at. And when those decisions are made, that's what we will make in the future. And I look forward to the people that we invited to that meeting that came to help us make those decisions, because they've worked within these realms for many years, a lot more than a lot of us sitting around this table today. They do have good ideas. They do have good suggestions, and I'm sure we will be using some of those in the future. So I do appreciate them coming, and I have the utmost respect for everyone in those environmental areas, and I always want to hear what they have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to commend Ms. Creech for suggesting the staff prepare this meeting and the staff for responding like they did. This dialogue is extremely important. We are on a sensitive site. We need to exhaust every alternative there is imaginable before we disturb any sensitive areas. And this plan attempts to do that. But we need to do this in a way that the public is informed, and we look at every alternative that we might have overlooked, and opening it up and making sure that the public is aware of the project. We hear alternate ideas, and we're questioned, and to make sure that we're on the path we need to be on. So my congratulations to all, and my apology, Ms. Wood and everyone who was in attendance. I missed that meeting, and I do apologize to you because I wanted to hear what your comments were. Staff has reported the dialogue that you had. We all take it very importantly that you be part of the process. So thank you for your involvement and asking the questions that you're asking, and be probing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Stein. I'm sure you'll have opportunities to hear from them again.
Well, and I wanted to say one more thing, and that is that I'm also an environmentalist, like Ms. Creech said, and I did tell the executive committee when we first discussed this project, I'll be following it with not just 2 eyes, but 4 eyes. Thank you.
Mike, in
October, I'm going to be meeting with the Dean of the College of Packaging at the premier land-grant institution of higher learning in the Western world, who more than 50% of their graduates are now engineering packaging engineers in major corporations in America, and I'm going to encourage them to find a more cost-effective way, as well as using less material when they're developing packaging problems for their clients.
Thanks, Carl.
That's going to be in October.
We went to a conference, I guess, about a year ago, and it seems to be more of a national push to deal with business and industry, to have them create packaging that's recyclable. And so until we get, like Pam said, until we can get more people on board of creating those kinds of things, then, you know, we're still at this crossroad. But there is conversation about doing those kinds of things, and I think we need to further that. And the more we can get communities and people involved who it affects, I think the more we can put pressure on the people who have the powers to make these things happen. And I think that's one thing that we need to look at. I know a lot of states have mandatory recycling. They have recycling bins. Florida is one of them, has a lot of things. My daughter did a work on recycling in Florida, state of Florida. So there are things out there. And like Bo said, we want to look at all alternatives. You know, we don't want to rush into anything. I'm a Highway 90 native. I inherited this, and I want to make sure that the environment stays as pure as it can. So I have a personal interest as well as the rest of you. So I do thank them for coming, and I thank all of you for your comments. Dan, you got something else you need to say?
No, sir.
I don't think we had any committee reports, did we? No? Because you don't have any committees, do you? Boy, are you in for a surprise. We do have some old business. We have the capital improvement project, Piggy Bank expansion phase 3 update. And Vance Moore, are you gonna do that for us?
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, Vance.
So what I want to talk about today is a little bit on the schedule for the Phase 3 piggyback, and in particular, the demonstration of need and letter of consistency process. And what that is this is the beginning of the permit application process. So what you'll hear people use the term DON, or demonstration of need, LOC, or letter of consistency. A lot of times we use these acronyms in our business a lot and don't explain what they mean adequately. But demonstration of need and letter of consistency are requirements from the state on how you proceed with application processes, and they dictate the information you must submit to them for them to make their determination. I've got some examples of stuff that is included. For instance, under the demonstration of need, you must provide the facility name, the applicant's contact information, like the name, address, telephone number, the geographical coordinates, the type of the facility. The type would be a Class 2 or C&D landfill, Class 3 or MSW landfill would be examples. The annual disposal rate, the name of the host or region, which for yours it'd be just on Ouray County, and the signature. That would be what's included in the demonstration of need. And with regards to the determination of consistency, you have to submit the proposed project, and that the state will make a determination as to whether or not the project is consistent with the solid waste management plan that is on file at the state, as well as the state solid waste management plan. In addition to that, you have to provide some buffer information for the proposed project to demonstrate the consistency of the location of the facility to certain criteria, offsets from that. Now, we have prepared drafts of these for the authority's consideration, and I just would like to talk a little bit about what would happen if you were to move forward and submit these requests. And what would happen is you would submit this letter with this information to DHEC, and DHEC would first say that they have received it and that it is complete. In other words, they're not making a judgment as to whether or not they agree. What they're saying is, you have given us a complete application. At that point, the reason that's important, it triggers a timeline in which the authority has to then file a ad in a paper that says that you have an intent to file an application. And so what you're doing is, what you'll see as I keep going through this, there is causes and effects. You turn in this, they do this, then you have to do that, and there's these depending timelines that happen. Typically what happens is DHEC will make their determination within a 2-week period from their submittal. They could be less than that, but they have 2 weeks to give you that determination. Then you would be placing ads in the paper. I believe it's within 2 weeks of getting their notification that you have to run an ad in paper of, I believe it's got to be a daily paper that you have to run this ad in. You have to inform DHEC that you ran the ad, provide proof that you ran it. And then DHEC, while this is going on, they're going to have up to a 45-day period of which they can make their determination as to whether or not the information you sent, that there is a demonstration of need and that it is consistent. They will then publish a notice of draft determination. This is a DHEC ad that they are running, and then it will start a public comment period. This is the public comment period on DHEC's decision of your application. Then DHEC, if they during the public comment period get enough comments, they will actually have a public hearing, which means they'll have a hearing probably somewhere local here to hear public input. And then they will, after that, then they will have their notice of their determination after the public hearing. That's will be the final determination. Now, I put together a timeline. You don't know exactly how long. You have a maximum time frame for each of these steps. It can be shorter on some instances on how quickly, let's say, DHEC will make a determination. The advertisement days and all are minimum. So if it says you must advertise for 2 weeks, you have to advertise for that period. So we have to make some assumptions on this timeline, but we've done it on several projects and several different clients, and making an assumption that if you turned one in tomorrow, for instance, going through this entire process, short of any kind of appeal, would be starting on the end of July, would run through about the middle of November, thereabouts. That's how long it'll take to go through this process. There's a chance that they could be appealed, and that would then extend that further. But that is your first step of doing a permit application process. And based on that, the schedule would be that you would submit or be eligible to submit a permit application package. That's the actual drawings and report for the project, that you would be able to turn that in the December timeframe, certainly by the end of the year if you chose to. And then what that would start is, after you gave an application to the state, what has traditionally happened, you have done that and then have started what's called the FIN process, the Facilities Issues Negotiation process. And we've discussed it with staff in that you do not have to have an actual application submitted before you start the FIN process, but it's been in my experience, if you don't have the information that's in the application. It's hard to negotiate what the project is unless you can share, you know, the information that you're trying to get permitted. So I put together a schedule assuming that you would not initiate the FIN process until after the application has been prepared and submitted. But there's a specific process on how you go through this facility issues negotiation process also. That includes doing ads in the paper that say that there's an opportunity to start the FIN process. You're looking for a threshold of request from the public for their desire to enter into that process. Assuming you do hit that threshold, then you go through a process of forming a committee, having a minimum number of meetings, and there's processes for going through the whole process, and then also doing public notices of the results of the FIN process. That is a process that can take considerable time just because of the steps that are necessary. That, in my schedule, I think I show that being about a 145-day process just to go through the FIN process. And then while that is going on, DHEC will be reviewing the information that you have submitted to them, so they will be going on concurrently. But, and so we cannot predict, there is no deadline that you can say DHEC must review your application by. We're somewhat at their, it's in their hands. They control that schedule. I would like to think the better prepared, organized ones are easier to review and therefore would cut down their review time. So under the assumption that we would turn in an application in the December timeframe, I don't think it would be unreasonable for DHEC to make a determination on that permit and to give you what their decision is on review of that permit. My schedule assumed that if you turned it in December timeframe, that it would be late September, early October timeframe when you would go through all the process with DHEC. And of course, I need to reemphasize, that's just based on historical examples of what's been done. There's no guarantees on what these schedules would be, but it's an example of what we have seen in regards to DHEC's response time. You can also get involved in appeals processes with DHEC's decisions. In other words, somebody could appeal DHEC's decision, which would then further add to the end of the schedule, assuming that was to happen. I've added approximately about 90 days to go through an appeals process if you were required to do that above and beyond the decision of DHEC. So with that all being said and done, if you were to start the process tomorrow with my best, and I want to use the term estimates of time frame that for items that we have no control over, in other words, DHEC's controlling the schedule, but my estimates of what their time would be, my best estimate right now is if you were to start it tomorrow, going through all this entire process could take up till August of 2020. And so it's not a short-term process. It can be very long and complicated and a lot of steps in between here and there. And another thing to emphasize, this is one of those things that you have somewhat of a critical path on a lot of items that you cannot start a subsequent task until the previous task is completed. And so any delay on the early task just kicks out the later task that much further. And so what you'll probably see if we proceed with this is a calendar or a schedule that'll have to be updated and maintained as we progress, and it's something that will be updated on a routine time frame to see how this schedule is progressing versus how we anticipated it to progress. So, in particular, that's what I have in regards to the schedule on the project, and ready to answer any questions.
Does DHEC have standard forms to fill out for these applications, or do we just kind of draft those as a need basis? Does DHEC have forms for us to fill out, or do we have to draft and hope we hit their wishes?
Up front, let's say this step one, which I'm calling the demonstration of need and letter of consistency, they have very specific information that you're to supply to them. And so they do outline it very specifically. They have a very specific public notice and ways to go through the FIN process, so it's very well spelled out. The permit application process is per regulations. The regulations have been in effect for some time, and so you're demonstrating that you meet the regulations. And so I feel that it's fairly well spelled out.
I have two questions. The 2020 deadline is assuming that we would have no problems. Things would flow fairly smooth.
I believe that if you look at this, it did have some appeals, when you say problems, that
Right.
it would be appealed. I would say, I would use this as a general guide. There's certainly things that could be compressed in here and done on a shorter time frame, because you control it, and it's how long it takes for you to put together some of these tasks. There's areas that could be expanded, and I would say that the project that I have laid out here is the best estimate that I have based off my nearly 30 years of doing it with them. But that being said, I know better than to say, count on this.
Right. My other question is, with DHEC in the public hearing, you said that DHEC would issue for public hearing. How do the public respond back to DHEC? Is that through email? Is that through phone calls? I guess my concern there is that people, is it in the newspaper? How would interested people know to respond, and what time frame do they have to respond?
Okay. The public notices include that type of information as far as who to respond to, contact name, locations, and so forth. So all the requirements for the public notices spell out specifically what you need to do and then within what time frame for that particular step. So,
One of the problems I had many years ago, and I think that's one thing you're asking too, is that generally the public doesn't read those kinds of things. And I think the environmental groups that we invited, they have people on their staff that read all of these. They let the people in the conservation voters community and so forth be aware of that. They make the public in areas aware of that. And then when articles in the newspaper and other TV and so forth, that makes a whole lot more people aware of it. I've always believed in public scrutiny all my life, and I believe on this that we should have as much as possible. So I think it will get out to the public, and it certainly should in those areas.
I think that you could anticipate, if you were to elect to start this process, within 15 to 30 days, it'll be required of you to run an ad in the paper saying that we have a notice of intent, and there'll be subsequent ads that you'll have to run once you start the process. It sort of has a set path from that point forward, from the time you hit the go button.
I don't think there'll be a problem with the word getting out, by no means. We went through this, the DHEC public meeting is their meeting. They call it, they run it. We don't have anything to do with it. It's based on the application. The Fin Committee, we held that here. The DHEC meeting was held up at the school up the road. Fin Committee met here
In the past, it did, yes, sir.
4 or 5 different times. We even hired the judge to be the moderator for it. And the turn lanes out front came out of that Fin Committee. They recommended that being done. Speed limit on 90 was part of it. A lot of the beautification and putting the balloons up, so. And I asked Art Brazel, I said, why in the world do you have this Fin deal? He said, well, Danny, here, people can come in, they can get information, you got public input, and they can pretty much get what they need to know about it. But if you got a private landfill and you're gonna do something, they don't have a way to get in the door. And that's the reason this Fin Committee is set up, and it worked well in our case because we put the balloons up, the height of the landfill, and we did a lot of things that they wanted us to do, and the turn lanes were, that was one of the best things that we ever did. Yeah.
And the picking up trash, I've been involved in some Fin committees, but he's right. The difference in a public landfill where we publish some of the things and that you can come in and ask for as public are very different than what you will get in a private. It is. If you do try to ask them for some of their financials and what they do, and you'll be sadly disappointed. DHEC doesn't even make them record what they're recycling and what there is. There's no law that makes them do that, which causes problems. But to me, there's a difference.
That's all I had. Any other questions for Van?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to new business. I had some roundtable discussion, basically just wanted to pass these out. These are committee assignments. Let's see if you have any questions or concerns or objections. Get one? I think most of you are serving on at least 1 or 2 committees. What I tried to do is put folk where I think their expertise lies and their interests lie, and also with experience. Nothing is written in stone. So if you have some preferences, I may consider them.
Mr. Chairman, my only comment is I think you did an outstanding job with the selection on my behalf. Thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, Carl. Coming from you, I take that as a compliment. Well, if I don't hear any objections for it, I assume these are the committees that you will be on, and you see your role as an assignment. Is there any other roundtable discussion that we need to talk about? Hearing none, I don't think we have any executive session, do we, scheduled? No executive session? So with that, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
Motion made.
Thank you, the meeting is adjourned.